Sup y'all, and welcome to Organization and Reorganization of Human Societies. Unit 2, circa 600 BCE to circa 600 CE, Part 1. In this unit, we're going to investigate the second wave civilizations, those of China, India, Persia, Greece, and Rome, as well as those in Africa and the Americas. In studying this era, we will pay special attention to empires, which can be defined as large states, which are essentially political entities that maintain power within and outside their borders. Many grow so large that they encompass people from many regions, creating a multicultural society, and we will see varying degrees of success in how the governments dealt with these differences. Empires rise, grow and expand, often violently, and in time, they all fall, sometimes quickly. We will begin by briefly looking at one of the most iconic of the ancient civilizations of this era, Rome. The legendary foundation of Rome follows the well-known myth of the she-wolf suckling the twin brothers and demigods Romulus and Remus. Later, the myth states they founded the city, and in an argument, Romulus killed Remus and named the city after himself. However, Rome's actual start took place sometime in the 8th century BCE, emerging as a poor city-state in central Italy. It was an unlikely candidate to become one of the most powerful empires of its age. Around 509 BCE, the aristocracy established Rome as a republic, originally where two consuls, or leaders, were advised on political affairs by the Senate. The unhappiness of the poorer Roman citizens, the plebeians, led Rome to establish written codes and even enabled some of them to represent themselves in public assemblies. The Romans believed their system afforded them more freedom than anywhere else. And around 490 BCE, they began the long process of expanding their empire, mainly through warfare. They expanded throughout the Italian peninsula and then conquered Carthage, a major rival across the Mediterranean Sea. It has been recorded that the Romans pillaged the city, leveled buildings, and even sowed the land with salt, so nothing would grow there ever again. Rome expanded across North Africa, west into Gaul, Spain, and Britain, and east into Eurasia. For the first time in history, the entire Mediterranean region was under the control of a single empire. The Romans held it together with force through their powerful army and with guile, especially with the construction of sophisticated roads that enabled them to travel faster than perhaps any other civilization to that time. As Rome became more of a warrior society, it also became a stark patriarchal society as well. However, by the beginning of the Common Era, women, at least in the elite classes, gained more power and authority over their own affairs, especially in terms of property and marriage. Nonetheless, the expansion into so many territories led to a massive population of slaves within the Roman Republic. Rome suffered internally due to vast inequality between the few who were well-educated and wealthy and the majority who were largely poor. After a civil war, Rome ceased to be a republic, with the appointment of an emperor, Augustus. This began a period known as Pax Romana, Latin for Roman peace, lasting over 200 years in which Rome expanded to its greatest size, experienced relative peace, and was at its maximum strength. Across Eurasia, around the time that Rome was just coming into existence, the Chinese state had devolved into several competing regions during the age of warring states that persisted for centuries. Toward the end of the 3rd century BCE, the state of Qin, named after its leader, known now as Qin Shi Huangdi, launched a war to reunite China, doing so within a decade. Shi Huangdi means the first emperor, and the Chinese expanded their empire into the borderlands of Vietnam and Korea. Under the Qin dynasty, order was maintained through their army and through the building of the Great Wall, constructed to keep out northern barbarians. They maintained order within through legalism, a philosophy that follows strict rules and harsh punishments. Uniform weights, measurements, currency, and language helped tie the Chinese empire together. So, how do we compare and contrast the Romans and the Chinese? First off, they both invested heavily in public works projects to integrate the people of their respective lands. While Roman leaders were revered after their deaths, they were not regarded as gods. While a Chinese emperor was known as the Son of Heaven, having received the mandate of heaven. Both civilizations also absorbed vast territory as well as a variety of people and cultures. Both absorbed foreign religions into their empires to a large degree, Christianity in Rome, Buddhism in China. They both maintained centralized control over their empires. However, the Chinese did so with a much more complex bureaucracy. The Romans often idealized the Greeks, sometimes even greater than themselves, establishing a Greco-Roman tradition. On the other hand, the Chinese regarded themselves as superiors in almost every respect to their neighbors. Finally, both greatly affected their respective environments. Urban sprawl and expansion led to massive deforestation and even pollution. For instance, soil erosion in China led them to change the name of the river to the Yellow River. A major similarity both empires had in common is that in time they both collapsed. And this is true of all empires. Many factors explain why empires rise and ultimately fall. In the case of Rome and China, one factor is they overextended their resources and ability to control their territories. Also, massive inequality ravaged their societies. Rich land-owning elites gained significant political influence and challenged the state, while the majority of the people became more impoverished and sometimes even led into revolt. As stated previously, environmental factors led to the decline as well. Some, as in the case of deforestation, was of their own doing. However, climate fluctuations also led to drought and hot weather at one extreme and cold, rainy conditions at the other. Empires may conquer a great deal, but in doing so, they also create a lot of enemies. Both had to deal with nomadic groups at their borders. After years of warfare, eventually both empires succumbed to their enemies. The grandeur of Rome was never duplicated in Europe, and the continent eventually descended into the Middle Ages. Whereas, after a few centuries, another series of empires ruled China as a singular empire again. As we progress through this period of time, we will see many other examples of empires that rose and then ultimately collapsed, only to be remembered in the history books and the occasional video.
Hey guys! Whoa, big gulps, huh? All right. Well, see you later.